Israel and the United States are intensifying preparations for a plausible military option vis-à-vis Iran as the Islamic Republic remains determined to develop its nuclear program far beyond civic application. While Washington, under the Biden administration, remains vocally open to diplomatic channels related to Tehran's nuclear ambitions, Jerusalem officials have noted carefully that an American pledge to ensure that the Islamic Republic would not field a nuclear weapon has turned from words to deeds. The officials, who spoke on condition of anonymity, have underscored growing political leeway in reinforcing alternative solutions to the conflict with Iran, a shift that has increasingly fostered as a reaction to Iran's deepening relations with Russia and the Ayatollah regime's brutal repression of the Iranian people. Meanwhile, as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to conclude a two-day visit to Israel and the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, in his meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem yesterday, Washington's top diplomat highlighted the need for Jerusalem to take note of Tehran's deepening ties with Moscow.
We agree that Iran must never be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon. And we discussed deepening cooperation to confront and counter Iran's destabilizing activities in the region and beyond. Just as Iran has long supported terrorists that attack Israelis and others, the regime is now providing drones that Russia is using to kill innocent Ukrainian civilians. In turn, Russia is providing sophisticated weaponry to Iran. It's a two-way street. Russia's ongoing atrocities only underscore the importance of providing support for all of Ukraine's needs, humanitarian, economic, and security, as it bravely defends its people and its very right to exist, a topic that we also discussed today.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for his part, joined in highlighting Israel's unwavering commitment to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons or the means to deliver them.
Your visit comes at an important time. It's a time where many in the international community, I would say most of the international community, have seen the true face of Iran. They've seen the barbarism of this regime against its own people. They've seen how it exports aggression beyond its border and beyond the Middle East. And I think there's a common consensus that this regime must not acquire nuclear weapons. We've had very good discussions on forging a common policy, on trying to work together to thwart the danger. I can repeat again something that you've heard me say many times. Our policy and my policy is to do everything within Israel's power to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. And that will remain so. But obviously the fact that we and the United States are working together is something that is important for this common goal as well.
It is important to know that Netanyahu's pledge for Israel to remain unrelenting in ensuring that Iran does not acquire the means to deliver nuclear weapons was made as the Islamic Republic remains adamantly convinced, despite lacking any concrete evidence, that Israel's Mossad was behind a one-way drone attack which struck an Iranian defense manufacturing installation in the city of Isfahan. Consequently, Israel's defense establishment has been deliberating a possibility that the Ayatollah regime might seek ways to retaliate, including by targeting Israeli nationals overseas, Israeli diplomatic representative offices, or possibly aim to strike Israeli-owned cargo vessels in international waters. According to a senior defense establishment official who spoke to TV7 on condition of anonymity, he highlighted that while Israel works tirelessly to protect its citizens and interests abroad, it also knows how to respond with force to any of its enemies, testing Jerusalem's unwavering resolve. Nevertheless, it is worth noting that Iran has a long history of blatant attacks against civilian targets abroad, including in Europe and the United States, among others. Just this past Friday in Washington, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray held a news conference in which they unveiled an indictment charging 3 individuals, which Iran had sent to the United States for the purpose of assassinating American citizens, both officials and civilians alike.
The conduct charged in today's case shows just how far Iranian actors are willing to go to silence critics of the Iranian regime, even attempting an assassination right here in the United States. But looking at the threat from Iran more broadly, we've seen the Iranian regime become more aggressive and more brazen across vectors. In just the past couple of years, actors associated with Iran have launched a ransomware attack against a children's hospital in New England, attempted to assassinate the former U.S. National Security Advisor on U.S. soil, and now plotted to silence a U.S. citizen, a journalist who publicized the Iranian government's human rights abuses right smack in the middle of New York City. If that doesn't show how serious the threat from Iran is to Americans right here in America, I don't know what is.
Returning to Jerusalem, where Prime Minister Netanyahu stressed to Secretary Blinken during their meeting that alongside proactive efforts to thwart threats emanating from Iran and elsewhere, Jerusalem remains keen on widening the so-called Circle of Peace.
In addition to thwarting the danger, we also see an opportunity to seize opportunities, the opportunities of expanding the Circle of Peace. We intend to deepen the peace that we've already made in the Abraham Accords. We discussed some of the initiatives that we are considering doing together, but also to perhaps achieve dramatic breakthroughs that I think could be both historic and enormously significant in our common efforts to bring prosperity, security, and peace to this part of the world and beyond. So with this in mind, I have to tell you that I also believe that expanding the Circle of Peace, working to close finally the file of the Arab-Israeli conflict, I think would also help us achieve a workable solution with our Palestinian neighbors.
Secretary Blinken responded by acknowledging the importance of capitalizing on the historic Abraham Accords by making every effort to broaden the Circle of Peace. Nevertheless, Washington's top diplomat also underscored that efforts to seek peace with Arab nations throughout the region must not substitute for progress between Israel and the Palestinians.
These efforts are not a substitute for progress between Israelis and Palestinians. But as we advance Israel's integration, we can do so in ways that improve the daily lives of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. And that's crucial to moving toward our enduring goal of Palestinians and Israelis enjoying equal measures of freedom, security, opportunity, justice, and dignity. President Biden remains fully committed to that goal. We continue to believe that the best way to achieve it is through preserving and then realizing the vision of two states. As I said to the Prime Minister, anything that moves us away from that vision is, in our judgment, detrimental to Israel's long-term security and its long-term identity as a Jewish and democratic state. That's why we're urging all sides now to take urgent steps to restore calm, to de-escalate.
Blinken went on to assert Washington's support for upholding the historic status quo at Jerusalem's holy places, including the Temple Mount, where only Muslims are allowed to worship, while Jews, Christians, and others are merely allowed to visit the ancient compound as tourists.
We also remain committed to supporting religious coexistence and diversity, including in Jerusalem. We continue to support upholding the historic status quo at Jerusalem's holy places, including the Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif. We're grateful to the Prime Minister for his repeated expressions of support for that position.
It is important to know that while visiting Israel, Secretary Blinken also seized the opportunity to highlight the imperative for the Jewish state to maintain its democratic character amid looming judicial reform. Moreover, in his meetings with respective Israeli leaders, the Biden administration's top diplomat repeatedly insinuated that any significant damage to democratic values and to the structure of the Israeli government would make it very difficult for the United States to maintain its relationship with Israel moving forward. Meanwhile, ahead of concluding his visit earlier today, State Secretary Blinken also traveled to the West Bank city of Ramallah, where he met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. It is important to know that ahead of this meeting, The Palestinian leader also held a preparatory meeting with CIA Director William Burns, during which President Abbas highlighted that the Palestinian Authority maintains its intelligence cooperation with Israel, and despite the announcement to suspend the Palestinian security coordination with Israel, it will be resumed once tensions on the Palestinian streets alleviate. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by any of our productions, please consider making a financial contribution, which would allow us to continue our operations here in Jerusalem. Separately, I would like to encourage you, pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, as well as for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.